and you are watching another edition of Blewetts Blitz, a live stream edition with my good friend Michael Nanya, who was shitting on the oldies with the basketball takes recently, but I accept him back onto the show with open arms. Nanya, my friend, what is up, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I was watching that stream while it was happening. I kind of caught it at the end. I don't think I heard my name, but I knew like, oh, this is definitely brought up by me. So I like it. It's a little battle of like, it's kind of how NFL players kind of exchange their like subtle shots on social media. We engaged in a little bit of that over basketball, which is good because I feel like we agree a lot in terms of the Jets and football. So it's nice to have the NBA be a little bit of a divide of somewhat for us.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I addressed you directly while you subtweeted me, so it's fine. Yeah. It's all good. No, so today we're gonna do something a little different. I will ask the chat if you're coming in here. Hopefully you start from the beginning. If you come in late, it is what it is. But we're gonna do kind of like a podcast at first, and we're gonna take some of your guys like thoughts and stuff that is going to be like relevant to the conversation. But really, long story short, I'll just get right into it, is that in January, I had to go to a class where you have to do like public speaking, and you have to do a few different presentations. You have to do like a 5 minute, a 10 minute, a 15, I think a 30, and then there's another one. I forget how long it was. And my 30-minute one was on my miserable life as a New York Jets fan. And I asked you guys in January, like, hey, do you guys ever want me to bring this to a stream? So here it is. We'll get into it in a little bit, but we kind of go through year by year and just talk about what happened in that year and just things off the top of our heads and obviously in the presentation. So if you have anything to add in the chat to those years and stuff, we will throw it up on the live stream. But we have massive news to get into before we get into the presentation, and the thicker kicker is quite literally the massive news, pun intended. Nanya, you were not a fan of the kickers brought in previous. I don't really remember their names, to be completely transparent, but you were not a fan, and I believe you are a fan of the thicker kicker. So tell us a little bit about him before we get into the presentation, because that's all that's going on in Jets land, minus some stupid made up crap.
Yeah, I mean, I was not a fan of the kicker situation. I mean, all of us are aware of, how that position played out last year. And you would think that after a season like that, they would prioritize it. And that doesn't mean, use a second round pick on Roberto Aguayo like the Buccaneers did. But, you don't even have to use a draft pick. But they signed Caden Davis, and he wasn't very good in college. They kept Anders Carlson from last year. He has already been cut twice in the league, and he was drafted. So it was not a very good competition. I didn't think there was anything positive that was going to come out of that if they stuck with it. But, they worked out Mevis along with Rodrigo Blankenship. They were both great in the UFL this year. And I like that concept because, it's different if there's like a great receiver or edge rusher from the UFL or whatever it may be, but kicking the ball is kicking the ball through the uprights. That's transferable. So I like that they worked those two guys out. They were both very good last year in the UFL. And yeah, I mean, Mevis was really good in college. He had that 61-yard game winner against Kansas State. That was an SEC record. He was consistent throughout his whole career, and he was 20 for 21 this year in the UFL. So I feel like with kicking, it's just as simple as, just go off of, you could talk, we talk about film a lot on this show. You do. Kicking is the one thing where there's no film, there's no context or anything. It's just, what is your track record and can we rely on it? And he is a pretty good one, much better than Carlson, who they just waived, and also Davis, who he'll be competing against. So I think this is an upgrade, and I feel a lot more comfortable about the kicker situation now.
Yeah, it's just like a thing where you talk about it being transferable and stuff, but then it's like at the same time, why did he do so great at the UFL? He did so great at Mizzou, and then he comes to the NFL, and I forget what the team he was brought into, and I guess he struggled. I don't know if he kicked during the
it was odd. I couldn't really figure. I mean, maybe in practice he struggled because he's with the Panthers. He signed with them. He only played one preseason game. He made the kick that he attempted, which was a 41-yarder. But that was it. That was his only preseason appearance. So, maybe he must have not been great in practice, which, it is what it is. You have to perform there as well, and that's harder for us to see. But yeah, I think his in-game track record is good enough for him to deserve a shot and at least, be a more reliable competitor than Carlson would have been.
Yeah, that or the fun storyline of the GM or the special teams coach's wife had a soft spot for the thicker kicker based on the beef he had. So then, the whole story unfolded and he got cut because of that and not the actual kicking. But yeah, really, really past that, like, I don't know if you want to mention anything of like training camp and stuff like that. The thing I will say is, and Nania knows because I send him 1,000 messages, but I've done 31 reviews of Jets players. So quite literally any free agent, any draftee, really, and even Jets players. I've done extensive work. So if there are any questions on people on the roster and stuff, I'm pretty tapped into it right now. So feel free to drop those questions. Again, we'll probably get back to the questions. So like drop a Q or something like that next to it, and I'll get back to it after the presentation. I think really past that, the only other news that's come out recently is like I saw Samini, I think, came out with like, oh, Reynolds is the clear-cut wide receiver 2 right now, which is not shocking to either you or I. Once I watched the film of him in 2023, I'm like, if he's anything close to what he is in 2023, he's easily going to be the Jets number 2 receiver. I think you're on the same page, but not really a surprise there, right?
Yeah, that one's definitely not surprising. I think, maybe to some other people it was. Maybe Allen Lazard is penciled in because totals wise or money wise, he stands out as maybe the second guy in that room. But, obviously they drafted Arian Smith. They have some other young guys in there. But I mean, Josh Reynolds, I'm excited about him. And, that's not to say he's going to be one of the best number 2s in the league or that it's even ideal for him to be your number 2. But I just think he's a guy who is really good in his role. He does a lot of different things well. And within what you ask him to do, he's pretty good at executing it. And, in terms of roster construction, the more you're asking him to do, the less of a positive situation that is, which is why, they still have a need at receiver. It's not ideal for him to be your number 2 receiver, but they do have a situation where they have Mason Taylor, tight end. They have Breece Hall, who's a high volume receiving back. So they can create sort of that hierarchy like the Lions had when he was over there, where it was Amon-Ra as the top receiver, then it was Sam Laporta, then it was Jahmyr Gibbs, and then it was Reynolds as the number 4 target. So even though he was the second receiver, he was the 4th overall target. So with that model, I think it can work. Obviously, they have other questions at quarterback and everything else, but I just think he's good hands, like you said. His route running is, he's not like a big time separator or like speed guy or anything, but it's solid enough to get separation. And I think if they can limit his targets and get enough out of those other 3 guys up top, and he only has to get, his 3, 4, 5 targets per game, I think he's going to make those count. And that's the players like that are how you win. You need a lot of those to build a complete team around your superstar. So I like him in that way.
Yeah, no, I do like him, and like you said, with the Lions, like he was their target 4. I think for the Jets it'd be the same thing. It'd be Mason Taylor 2, and then probably Breece 3 with him being 4. And I think on a good team, he's probably a very good 4. I think on a kind of a more lower tier team, he's probably a like decent 3. So he's a little bit miscast as a 2 for the Jets, but. Just acknowledging the fact that like him versus Tyler Johnson versus Lazard, like he's easily the best in my opinion. And then really the only other thing like I'm looking out for obviously I'm looking out from a lot from training camp, but I'm really interested to see where Beck ends up and then people start talking about him. And you don't really know, like it's crazy that, and you do a lot of the editing and stuff, or all of it really, for my articles and the film breakdowns, and you saw my list of strengths and weaknesses for Tyron Smith, and you're like, this is a crazy list because I'm not like that usually. And then he comes here and sucks. It's like, it's so hard to know exactly what what is what's going to happen like year to year. So unless Beck fell off the face of the earth in terms of his skill just dropped, I was really surprised watching him, and I'm excited to see exactly what he offers, because I legitimately think he should be the Jets tight end 2 and fullback 1 right now. And that sounds crazy to people who don't know him, but go and watch the review. I believe it's out there. Go on my Twitter, JoerB31, and look at the highlights I put up of him. He's 100,000 times better blocker than Jeremy Ruckert. I think he runs better routes. He flashed better hands. He's easily the Jets' best skill position blocker that they have. So I guess before we get into it, any thoughts on Beck real quick? Because I think he's truly like the wild. You weren't here on the last stream, but I truly do think he's the wild card that Jets fans are not talking about.
Yeah, I think it brings up an interesting discussion, and you kind of just touched on it. But I think you said in one of the comments, but you're like, if he doesn't have a big role on the team, either he fell off a cliff or the team is just dumb. So like when I see reviews like yours of Beck, like. And even you go back to the tight ends that they signed a couple years ago when Uzomah out-earned Conklin. What do you think could be the reasoning behind why sometimes we see like blatantly on film one player might be better than another or whatever it may be, but they're just being valued completely differently by NFL teams? Like I think Beck is a great example because you put all the film out there. It's definitely a guy who is a clear rosterable player, probably tight end 2 type guy, but he's getting barely league minimum. So like, what do you think might be some of the disconnects that lead to that?
Drugs, extortion. I really, I don't know. Like it's to me, it has to be something behind the scenes really, because it's nothing that we see on film. Like really it's an overly simple, simplified answer, but what else could it be? Like, does he not take well to playbooks? Is he not a good locker room guy? Does he, I can't tell you. Like it's legitimately hard to understand because like you mentioned with Conklin, with Uzomah, Kinlaw got $15 million this year after sucking. Like I really don't understand. I brought this up on, I think last podcast with Tebow. It's just like some of the decision makers, I just really question what the hell they're thinking about and when they're watching these guys, because there's no way you watch Conklin and Uzomah the year before they came to the Jets and say, oh yeah, Uzomah demands more money than Conklin. So I really don't know. Maybe it's a thing where like, hey, Conklin only wants to play in a few select areas and, maybe he had more money elsewhere and he denied it to come to the Jets, which sounds very wrong. So I'm going to just lean back on drugs, extortion, blackmail, whatever. But yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I really don't know. Is there anything else you want to recap from camp really quickly? Do you want to talk about Joe Tippmann's excellent footwork from, some random beat reporter who I don't think would know what footwork was if it hit him in the face? You muted yourself, I think.
You got me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only thing I could really take away from minicamp. And I posted that great clip that you and Robbie had from your one stream. I was watching it and I was just like, I need to put this out because this encapsulates all my thoughts on minicamp. I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's cool that they're on the field and there's stuff happening to react to, especially because as we sit here right now, it's going to be another month plus until we get anything else. So it's nice to have those breadcrumbs, but I just don't, as someone who's like been in that perspective, not a lot, but I've been to a couple of practices as, media. And I know you're on that, Robbie explained it. You're on a roof. You're kind of not far away. Like it would be good seats at a real game, but it's also not close enough for me to be like, look at the footwork and look at the get off, or, you can't film it. You can't rewatch it. So it's just a lot to take those things, anything meaningful away from it besides, okay, here's who got the ball. He got a positive gain or he didn't. And we know there's nothing you could really get from that on top of the fact that there's no pads, no contact or, full contact. So I don't know. It's just hard for me I know it's kind of like a cop out to like not have anything super meaningful to take from it. But I just think that is meaningful to more so just say, this is nothing from our perspective. I think if you're a coach, the coaching staff themselves, like they do have the film of that and they are working on specific things with technique, with footwork, and they're aware of how all that is progressing. But from our perspective of just what's tweeted and the highlights that get put out, I just don't think there's anything we could meaningfully, glean from that.
Yeah, no, it's just like, look at all the receivers in past years who have dominated in camp and stuff like that. And they go to the actual games.
Jason Brownlee.
Jason Brownlee, who was the David Clowney, even the last 2 years, a little bit of Xavier Gibson kind of showing out in camp and then doing absolutely nothing in the regular season. So it's just interesting when you see like beat reporters, and again, I guess we are shitting on people, just is what it is, but like people who I know don't break down film or know what good footwork is are watching a practice from 150 yards away and saying, oh, this guy has really good footwork. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, let's be real here. Cause I don't think if Jim McNally, who was an offensive line coach, was 150 yards away, he could say it's good footwork. He's an expert, it's like, why are you saying it? So yeah, there's really not a lot to take away from the fans' point of view. And I'm not, we're shooting it down and it's kind of like, we're spinning a little bit more negative, but it's just a thing. We're being realistic because I know like Jets fans don't have a lot at this times, but I think people overvalue the reports coming out of these camps and stuff. But yeah, nonetheless, it is what it is. But and like you said, the coaches definitely take something out of it. Like the coaches are working on footwork and schemes and all that stuff and proper technique and whatever else it may be. So it's definitely meaningful. But in terms of our takeaways from fans' takeaways, from beat reporters' takeaways, it really just does not matter. Yeah, get this the Yeti real quick. I feel like we abused Conklin. I love the guy, but AR never hit him. And when we did, he's in the flats. He's a seams tight end. Yeah, and like Conklin was always a pretty solid receiving tight end for the Jets, and he caught the ball when it came to him. He was actually pretty good in contested situations. I would say better with the Jets than with the Vikings. He got worse as a blocker with the Jets. He was actually pretty awful. But overall, yeah, I think he was underappreciated by fans, and I would love to see him back. But I guess it is what it is. Rolling with there's been a lot of positive reports about Ruckert, which unless he completely changes his technique with everything, I guess he could be good. But like
again, how do you know that from mini camp?
I know. And like you have people like, oh, like he's he's and even Robbie, and I'm not shitting on Robbie, but I'm gonna shit on Robbie. It's like, oh, well, he has like, he's a good
Robbie's
blocker,
turn to get it called out while he's not.
I like attacking people when they can't defend themselves. But it's like a thing where it's like, and Robbie, and the thing with Robbie is Robbie's great with film watching and all that stuff. He just doesn't have as much time to do it because he's so busy with all the shit behind the scenes, which I always mention. But he even kind of mentioned the last stream, which I combated him on. It's like, oh, like he's a good blocker or decent blocker. It's like, no. He's not. He's just not a good blocker at this point. He can't catch balls. And when he catches balls and he's running up the sideline with them or whatever it was that one play, he drops it. Nobody even hits him. He just dropped the ball and fumbled it out of nowhere. The one play last year. So a little bit concerning. He's tight end too, but I legitimately think it should be Beck. And if it's not, hopefully they have a good reason for it or he sucked or whatever. But I'm hoping that that obviously everybody plays their full potential. I'm not rooting against Ruckert. I would love for Ruckert to be good, but based on what we've seen in 3 years, he's been legitimately awful for a third round tight end. So we'll get into the I see Yeti in here and Christian and Hawk and Connor and John and stuff like that. Obviously the dead periods, I'm not expecting the chat to be lit up. But again, if you have anything to add to some of these slides and stuff, you guys, I know there's Jets fans who are bigger historians than I am. So this was kind of like, again, not an impromptu. This is a presentation I made in a couple of days, just like things off the top of my head and looking some stuff up about kind of my life as a New York Jets fan. So we'll get into it. And the first thing I noticed actually on this, I didn't notice it when I was actually doing the presentation, but can you see my cursor or can you not see my cursor?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. I didn't realize that I put a 4 here. I guess this is for a picture, but this is an Elijah Moore jersey that then turned into a Corey Davis jersey at the time with some elite editing. It's actually a picture from us at Soldier Field when we went there. And then that was right before we went to the Packers game and watched the Jets beat the Packers. This was probably my favorite trip as a Jets fan. But again, and I'm going to read off some of this stuff a little bit, again, a little bit different of a feel to the stream, but becoming the New York Jets. Who are the New York Jets? Founded in 1959 as the Titans of New York, owned by Harry Wimser, a sports broadcaster, played on at the Polo Grounds in Upper Manhattan between 5th and 6th Avenue. Nania, I'm not going to ask your input because I don't think you're going to be able to add anything in a couple of these. Becoming the New York Jets again.
Honestly, that was educational for me.
See, there you go. a little bit of education. This is just to start it off. To kind of, I was introducing the class to the Jets, and for the people who don't know the Jets, obviously there's a ton of people who aren't Jets fans. But Harry Windsor then sold the team in 1963. The team was renamed the Jets. In 1965, they drafted Joe Namath with the first pick in the AFL draft. The Cardinals also drafted him in the 12th overall pick in the NFL draft, but he decided to sign with the Jets. Because of the bigger contract, I believe, a 3-year, $427,000 contract, the highest rookie contract ever at the time, $427,000, which I don't even think is a minimum for like a practice squad player at this point in the NFL. So crazy how times have obviously changed. But yeah, he was also drafted to the Cardinals. Did you know that, Nanya?
I'm sure I've seen that before, but if you asked me, I probably wouldn't have said that. I'm pulling up I was curious to see what that was for inflation. I'm pulling up what year was it?
1965.
Okay.
$427,000 versus today. So it was, I'm going to go with that was probably like 2.5 mil in today's money. If I had to bet,
4.4.
4.4. Okay. It's really not that bad, especially
not
for
bad.
the NFL was.
I mean, that's similar to like a high mid first round pick, right?
So yeah, I think about that, but that was a total year of that was a total of the contract. I don't think yearly. Gotcha. I think for the first round picks now, they're making $5 to $7 million per year.
That'd be annually, yeah.
So in 1968, the Jets advanced to the playoffs for the first time and played in the third ever AFL NFL championship game, officially called Super Bowl III. Prior to that, it was called the AFL NFL World Championship game. NFL was created in 1920. AFL was created in 1959. They merged, and that was announced in 1966, but they played separately until 1970. The Jets were heavy underdogs to the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III. Prior to the Super Bowl, Joe Namath guaranteed the Jets would beat the Colts, creating one of the most famous NFL sound bites. And the Jets ended up winning the game 16-7.
We're going to win the game, I guarantee.
Joe Namath, number 12, has been the one big sidelight. He's come down here and he says the Jets are going to win. In fact, he doesn't even predict it. He says, I guarantee a Jet victory.
Next, history of the famous Jets chant. The chant was started sometime in the 1960s and was only done in select sections of Shea Stadium. The chant started to grow over time. Different end zones would do the chant one at a time, back and forth. In the mid-1980s, Fireman Ed Anzalone took over the chant. The entire stadium started to chant together. This is me and my buddy Vinny with, I think there's a couple of Fireman Ed's family members or buddies or whatever, but we got hammered in Indy, I believe pre-Colts game. I don't know if it was the day of the Colts game or the night before, but nonetheless, good time.
What year was that? Was that the playoffs or the 2015 game?
That was 2015. That was 2015. So that was after Jets opened up. Who did they
Cleveland,
beat?
Right?
They beat Cleveland at home, right? It was Josh McCown helicopter game.
Yeah.
Right. When they got helicoptered. And then I think Johnny Manziel came into the game. We still ended up winning. And
that was the peak of his career, I think, when he threw that touchdown.
Funny enough, I actually just watched the Johnny Manziel documentary movie type deal on Netflix, recapping kind of just him going through college and whatever else. But I drove down to Indy. We went to Notre Dame. We saw Notre Dame G Tech the day before, that Saturday. And then we went to Indy the next day and hung out there. And then I think the Jets played the Colts on Monday Night Football. That's the one game you had a Revis fumble. I think you had a Revis pick maybe. And then you had a Brandon Marshall dragging 3 Colts into the end zone, front right corner. I remember that game. Famous Jets chant. Obviously, I think this is the chant from and I don't think you were there. I'm sure there's Jets fans who are going to listen to this or who are watching right now who were there. I believe this is a chant from the home opener with Rex Ryan against the Patriots. That was literally the loudest game I've ever been to. I know a lot of people say the game opening with Aaron Rodgers was the loudest I've ever heard, but it did not match this. And I legitimately think it's partially because of because you can actually see here, there's some empty seats. Like it's not completely packed, but I think the way that Giants Stadium is built versus MetLife Stadium, MetLife Stadium is a little bit more open, so it doesn't trap the noise as well. That's why I think Seahawks fans are bullshit, because their stadium is like concaved and they have metal bleachers. Like anybody would be loud. So Seahawks fans massively overrated, but little Jets chant for you. It was vibrant.
That's one of the cleanest that I've ever heard. And I just like looking at the highlights of that game, because the crowd pops on the broadcast are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I was not at that game, or I wasn't even watching the Jets at that point, but definitely from what I've seen from highlights, I think that is the loudest that I've heard them.
Yeah, and I've been to like all the air quote loud games before, and I don't think there was really anything close to that, to be completely transparent. But and I think we were kind of talking about this in the Slack the other day. Like I think Riv Kubman had mentioned like the draw of going to games or whatever, and it's really the environment. Like when they win, it is so freaking fun. Like just the tailgate, being excited, talking about the Jets, going in there, talking some crap to other fans, watching them win. Like there's nothing like listen, if you guaranteed me, hey, win or loss, whatever, like, yeah, for a loss, I'd rather sit on my couch, but just for the chance of a win and being there with the fans, it's worth it going for me, or going to the games for me, just for that chance that they win. Cause there's really nothing better. So early fandom, this is a little bit about me. Became more of a casual fan in about 2000. I was about 7 years old then, until about, 2006. I was about like 12, 13 when I became like a diehard fan. In those early years, team had some good records. In 2000, they were 9-7. 2001, they were 10-6. 2002, they were 9-7. In 04, they were 10-6. 06, they were 10-6, and they made the playoffs in 2001, 2002, 2004, and 2006. And I think we kind of frequently mentioned this. It's like the Jets were like, a lot of people shit on the Jets. At least they even a little bit right after like Rex Ryan, like, oh, the Jets are miserable. They've always been so bad. It's like in the 2000s, they were actually they made the playoffs 4 times. They really weren't a bad organization then. It was after Parcells kind of flipped the script a little bit for them. And they were a good team. And then obviously after Rex and all that stuff, they blew up a little bit. But obviously they had notable players such as Hall of Famers Curtis Martin, Kevin Mawai, Lavernius Coles, Wayne Corbett, John Abraham, among some others. Some fan favorites in there. We got Jericho Cotchery, Justin Miller, Leon Washington, bunch of really fun players in those early years. When did you become? So you became a casual fan, and when would you say you became a diehard fan?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of just hopped right into it. So I never really followed football too much. I was baseball first with the Yankees. Then I kind of got into the Knicks in like 2010. And then 2011, so the 2010 to 11 playoffs, I kind of watched the Steelers AFC Championship game. And then the following year, I was just instantly big into the Jets. I remember going to a preseason game against the Eagles that year. Then I was at the Cowboys home opener. So I was right into it. I didn't really have much of like a casual phase. So literally the entire playoff drought is my fandom from start to finish. No positive to speak of.
Yeah, -15. Did you say your first game was the 2011 game against the Cowboys?
Yeah, that was the first regular season game that I went to.
That's a pretty wild first game to go to.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. No doubt. Yeah, that was a great game for obvious reasons. Early fandom. Remember the Jets, there was still some pain. 2001, they made the playoffs, but they lost 38-24 to the Raiders in the first round. And 2002, they made the playoffs, but they beat the Colts 41-0 in the first round. Then they lost to the Raiders 30-10 in the next round. 2004, they made the playoffs. They lost 20-17 to the Steelers. They were down 20-17 late in the fourth quarter. They missed a 47-yard field goal with 2:02 left. They intercepted the offense on their first play with 1 minute and 58 seconds left. Missed a 43-yard field goal with 4 seconds left. Can you imagine, Nania, that the Jets are in a playoff game? They're down 20-17. They miss a 47-yard field goal to tie it. The Steelers then get the ball back. We pick it off the first play, and then we miss a field goal, a 43-yard field goal with 4 seconds left. That is quite painful.
I can't even like what you guys have been through. Anyone who's watched the Jets at least a season longer than me. I commend you for going through that, because for me, like, even, I watched the Knicks for so long and they never made the playoffs, but we've had competitive years the past few seasons. But even this year, it's so much different in the NBA, because you could go through what the Knicks did in game 1 and you're like, okay, we got a chance to bounce back from this. But in the NFL, if that happens, that's it. You're going home. So it's just a totally different feeling. Like, even look at the Lions last year. It's just a crazy thing to think about, that they had the season that they had, and then boom, like, you have one rough start to a game and you're out of here. It's all for nothing. So the NFL playoffs are, that's why I think it is the best playoffs, just because of the one and done nature of it.
Yeah, I would probably say for me, and basketball's really fallen off hard. I don't mean to offend you. I'm not trying to piss off Nani, because he's going to come at me with a bunch of stats.
I'm not that offended. I'm more like centrist on it. I'm not like a big,
Right.
I'm not going to go to war for the NBA. I'm just more like, hey, I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I think there's some positive aspects to it that get buried a little bit too easily. But I understand the concerns.
I think for the NFL, it probably is the best, just because of the one and done nature, like you said. But I think the NHL, you could argue for one, or is a very close second. Just the intensity and the I think it's the hardest cup to win. You can have an 8 seed win, you have a 1 seed win. Where like the NFL, NBA, like, it's really for the top 4 seeds. Like, you really don't see the lower seeds ever win it in hockey, or in basketball and football and all that stuff. So hockey, the playoffs are just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. But and for me right now, it's probably, and even baseball. Like, I like baseball more than basketball at this point. But nonetheless, moving on. I believe I put this in here, and again, excuse me, but I did this in January, this presentation, so I don't remember exactly all the clips and kind of what the story was behind them, because I obviously planned it out, and I don't even think I rehearsed it. I just kind of, I kind of freeballed it. But nonetheless, I believe this is the play this is one of my first memories at a Jets game. I don't know if you remember this play, but I'll play it. And I was here for this one. I think my first ever game was a Raiders game. I think I went to a Jaguars game in the mid 2000s. But this is like my first legitimate memory of a play on the field while at a Jets game.
Pennington out of the shotgun. And here comes the blitz. Pennington drops back under pressure again. Hit as he throws wide right. Caught by Jericho Cotchery. First down. Was he knocked down? He jumps up. Runs the right side of the 15 to the 10. 5. Touchdown.
Awesome. I know there's a lot of Jets fans out there who are big Jayco fans. You missed the Jayco years, Nania, so you didn't really get to appreciate how tough this guy was. But I'm assuming you've seen the play, right, of him against the Browns, where he like strains his hammy mid play.
Oh yeah.
And then he's targeted over the middle, and then like runs and dives for it, even though while he's injured. Like, just as such a tough Jet, like the definition of a Jet, in my opinion. Like, I think, really, gun to my head, he's probably top 3 Jet for me of all time, just in terms of like my personal favorites. And he might even be number 1. It's kind of like who I grew up with a little bit. But a little shout out to Jayco. I see Sluggo in here. Hello, Joe and Nania. A little bit different of a feel this stream, Sluggo. We're kind of recapping Jets misery, and with a presentation that I did a few months ago for a class I had to attend. So hope you enjoy, and if you have anything to add to some of these years, I hope you guys do. We'll get a little bit more into the actual like year by year stuff shortly. So early fan in 06, 07. So you have Pennington. His injuries started to stack up. He injured his wrist in 2003. He injured his shoulder in 2004. Multiple shoulder injuries in 2005. And then he sprained his ankle in 2007. Pennington throws for 27 touchdowns and 25 interceptions between 2006 and 2007. As he starts to press a little bit, because he's hearing rumors that the Jets may be thinking about moving on. So obviously, 2-year span, 27 touchdowns, 25 picks for somebody who's supposed to be your franchise quarterback. Obviously not ideal. The injuries start to stack up. So he has some injury problems. He also has some stuff to the throwing shoulder. So now his arm, which was already not strong, becomes even weaker, while absurdly accurate. A very, very weak arm. I'm not sure how far he can actually throw the ball, but it seemed like 40 yards was his max. Like, he could not sling it at all. So then 2008, Jets move on. They traded for Brett Favre late in the offseason. Favre is rumored to not want to be here. He was mulling retirement with the Packers. The Packers didn't want to wait around for him, so they decided to move on from him and kind of be the first one to make a move in that stalemate. He wanted to play for the Vikings, but the Packers wouldn't trade him within the division. So then the Jets kind of call up Favre, and they gauge his interest in playing in New York. Favre was always known to be liking to wear camo, and he asked the GM, Mike Tannenbaum at the time, about the dress code, which at the time was business attire. And then Mike Tannenbaum eliminates the dress code so Brett Favre can wear camo. Instead of everybody wearing their business attire on the plane and all that stuff. Now, because Favre is here, hey, we'll eliminate our dress code for you, Favre. You could wear your camo whenever
I didn't know that.
So, there you go. That's why we're doing this. But yes, that is what happened with Brett Favre. And again, dude, literally, as you can see, the next year wanted to go to the Vikings, and then he ends up coming to the Jets late in the offseason. Here we are. A year that started off. And you'll see here, Jets had the chance to win the division. Brady was injured early. He was out for the year for the Patriots. And I mentioned in the class, like Bill Belichick re-signing on the napkins and kind of why we hated the Patriots. And, we had the coach and then he left and all that stuff. You guys know the story, so I don't have to get into it so much. The Patriots at this point have won the division 6 of the last 7 years, including 3 Super Bowls. The Jets started out the season 8-3. They beat the 10-0 Titans for their 8th win as they become favorites to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. Favre then injures his right bicep. They finish 1-4 to miss the playoffs at 9-7 after starting 8-3. They lose the last game of the season to Chad Pennington and the Dolphins, who obviously moved on from the Jets the year prior. They made the playoffs with the win. So you get Favre, you start off 8-3. You think you're going to go to the playoffs. You're the favorite to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC. They then, Favre gets injured, all of that. They miss the playoffs, and of course, their last loss is to the Dolphins and Chad Pennington for them to make the playoffs, which is just brutal. I then mentioned in here that my dad bought me a Brett Favre jersey after the season for my birthday. So my birthday's in February. Brett Favre is probably leaving. They shit the bed at the end of the season, and then I get gifted a Brett Favre jersey. And it's like one of those things where like I'm not one of those, or I wasn't one of those douche kids, because like I see a lot of kids now, like they get a present and they don't like it. They're like, oh my God, I hate this. Like I was always one to be like, oh yeah, like thanks. It was hard to put on a brave face during that though. I'm like, really, dude? Like fucking Brett Favre jersey, just brutal. But nonetheless, I know you don't have any memories of 2008, so I'll move on. Rex Ryan, 2009 was hired. Obviously, leading an electric Ravens defense for a few years, one of the top defensive coordinators in the league at that point, with obviously a lot of the grit and stuff and the energy that he brings. The home opener was electric as they beat the Patriots at home for the first time in 9 years, which is crazy. I didn't know that before that, but 9 years they haven't beat him at home. They did that game. Players quoted saying the ground was shaking, which it was shaking that in that stadium. It was pretty wild. Jets had the number 1 defense, the number 1 run game that year, behind a stacked offensive line. They made the playoffs. They beat the Bengals 24-14 in the wild card. They beat the Chargers 17-14 in the divisional, which I don't know if you remember that game, Nani, at all. I know you said like maybe you're a casual fan at that point, but the Chargers missed 3 field goals in that game. So they really, the Jets probably shouldn't have even made the AFC Championship that year, because they did get gifted with some shanks by the Chargers kicker, whoever it was that year. And then they ended up losing to the Colts in the AFC Championship game, 30-17. Do you have any memory of the playoffs that year? Were you watching the playoffs or anything like that, or were you not?
Oh, I think at this point I honestly wasn't the biggest sports fan for most of my life growing up. Outside of baseball, I was like exclusively baseball. But I think around this time, like 09 into 10 is where I started to become a little bit aware of it. Like I would watch the Super Bowls and maybe the championship games, but not a lot of memory of that 09 Jets season. But looking back, it's interesting because I spend so much time on Pro Football Reference just looking at old teams and stats and stuff. So like the 2009 team in a lot of ways was actually like better ranked than the 2010 team, even though they won 2 more games. So it's interesting to see that difference, that like the 2009 defense is really one of the best defenses, specifically pass defenses ever. Just some of the numbers they had that year were insane. So It's cool that the Jets have that in their history. Because I just pulled it up here. 8 touchdowns, 17 interceptions they gave up that year. That is unbelievable. So it's definitely amazing that they had that type of unit, obviously led by Revis.
Yeah, and it's a thing too where like I think a lot of Jets fans just associate Mark Sanchez with like going to the playoffs and all that stuff. So I think people misremember him as a quarterback. He was not good. Like, I'm sorry, but can you imagine imagine Sam Darnold behind the number 1 defense, number 1 run game in the NFL. Like, he would have done better than Sanchez. I don't think Sanchez is great. I'm sorry. He came up clutch in some moments, but the only reason he needed to come up clutch in some clutch moments was because he sucked the other 3 quarters of the game. You know, like I didn't love Sanchez at all. I think people's opinion of him is a little bit inflated. That's obviously my personal opinion. So you can disagree, feel free. But yeah, and in 2009, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but I think they still had Thomas Jones, and in 2010 they moved on from Thomas Jones for LaDainian Tomlinson and Sean Green, which I did not love because you didn't get to watch Thomas Jones really, Nania, but the dude was an absolute monster, and I think he was better than both, you know, Tomlinson at that point and Sean Green. So I think he could have added something. They didn't bring him back for whatever reason, but nonetheless,
let's make sure we play like the New York Jets and not some slack team. That's what I want to see tomorrow. Do we understand what the I want to see tomorrow? Let's go to eat a damn snack.
one of the more famous quotes ever.
I'll always enjoy
history.
that, regardless of Rex's legacy with the Jets or continuing comments. It's always a classic.
Yeah. Like he was so hard to root against, and it was hard to see him, you know, at the end of his Jets tenure, because obviously a lot of fans wanted him fired, as did I and stuff. But in terms of like a guy you'd want to go and just grab a beer with at a bar, like, it's Rex Ryan, man. Like it's hard to hate on Rex Ryan. I appreciate what he did here for the Jets. So I really don't have ill will towards Rex Ryan. Now, a few months ago when Jets fans were bringing up hiring him again, you know, 11 years after he was fired, I think people are quite idiotic for that. But yeah, I really have no ill will towards Rex Ryan. I have a lot of fond memories of him. So yeah, but 2010, they mostly run it back. They bring in Santonio Holmes and LaDainian Tomlinson. This was the year that Rex Ryan's foot fetish was revealed. I forget exactly how. I don't know if it was like text with his wife or text with somebody else, but his foot fetish was revealed. Didn't become such a big story because they were winning and stuff, but it did happen in 2010. They ended up making the playoffs. They beat the Colts and Peyton Manning 17-13. They beat the Pats 28-21, the divisional round. Obviously, you know this, that they lost in the regular season to the Pats that year in Foxborough, 45-3. So it's like a game you're going into. It's like, yeah, like, you know, we can win any game and all that stuff, but they just shit on us. Like, are we really going to be able to compete in this game? And then obviously they ended up beating them. This is where the same famous soundbite came from.
To all the non-believers.
How did that?
To all the non-believers. Especially you, Tom Jackson. Way to have our back, Keyshawn. Anybody can be beat.
So how did that just feel?
Feel great. Poetic justice.
Love it. They ended up losing after this. They ended up losing to the Steelers 24-19 after being down 17-0 at half. The Jets fought back late with a chance to get the ball back, but let me move on to the next one.
They cannot afford to give up yet one more first down. Roethlisberger on 3rd and 6. Here's essentially the game. He extends the play to his right and on the run finds the receiver.
Yeah, heartbreaking. The Jets came out like barn burners after that second half, or after the first half break. Started dominating a little bit, and then the defense, obviously 3rd and 6 with a chance to get the ball back. Obviously led up a reception. I believe that's I think that's actually Antonio Brown, right? And he was with the Steelers in 2010, I believe. Let's see, Antonio.
Yeah, he was.
He was? Okay, yeah.
That was his rookie year, I think.
I think so. But yep, obviously they lose this game, and then that was the Super Bowl. It was them and the Cardinals, right? And then they ended up no. Was it them? No, was it the Packers? No, they played the Packers that year, right? I think it was the Packers, and the Packers beat them And that was Rodgers' one and only Super Bowl, right? He only has one. He doesn't have two, right? So yeah, we could have had a chance to play Rodgers, and I think they could have won. It's just it's hard when you have Sanchez as your quarterback, realistically, to win playoff games. Just being honest. 2010, take a little detour from just adding on to what happened that year. They moved into the lifeless MetLife Stadium, as I put, alienate former season ticket holders, as they now have PSLs for the lower seats, which are I think it stands for personal seat licenses, right? For the lower seats. Understaffing, it takes forever to get into the game. It still does take forever to get into the game, which really pisses me off. Ungodly amounts of traffic after the game, absurd food prices. And you could see, and I've been to so many stadiums, but you look at what this looks like from the outside, and again, big AC unit, like there's nothing to it. The only time it looks semi-nice is when they have LEDs at nighttime, but 13-year-old girls do that to their room, just throwing up LEDs. Like, it's really not that hard. So it's not like something great to behold, but at least it makes it somewhat, it makes it look somewhat good. But yeah, the move into MetLife, you make people, demand PSLs and all that stuff. And it just looks like absolute shit. So fans were not happy with MetLife. Like, I remember getting there and being like so excited to see it, because I wasn't like so much on social media and like looking at what it actually looked like. I think the first time I actually saw it was with my own eyes. I remember seeing it and be like, woof, this thing is freaking gross, dude. So, little detour. 2010 move into MetLife, which, any comments on MetLife? I know you weren't there in 2010 when it was built, but, I've been to Indy and Carolina. I've been to a bunch of stadiums at this point, and I plan on going to all 30 stadiums, right? All 30 stadiums in the NFL. But I think MetLife is easily the worst I've been to at this point.
Yeah, no, I think they use the excuse that like it's a 2-team stadium, so it's neutral colored.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't have identity because of that. I don't think that's an excuse. When you look at SoFi in LA, they have 2 teams, and look at that stadium, and we got this. So, definitely as someone who's also traveled to a bunch of stadiums, going to Vegas a couple of years ago, I saw the Jets in Atlanta when they played a preseason game there, actually. It's definitely disappointing that this is still a relatively new stadium, in the sense that, this isn't Soldier Field or Lambeau. It was built at this point 14 or 15 years ago. So there have been stadiums built in the years since then that are just much more impressive, and whatever, it's the look of the stadium, but it's not. It would be acceptable if it was an operational stadium, like you said, but it's not. It doesn't function efficiently either, so it looks terrible and it puts you in a bad mood. You're paying so much for parking, for food. It's impossible to get to and get out of. It's really not a good experience there in any way. It's probably the worst stadium I've been to in any sport. And I haven't been to every stadium in the country or even close to it, but definitely, considering all those factors, it's close to the bottom at the very least. Yeah,
at least like Soldier Field and Lambeau have some like history and stuff
right,
to
like
it.
They have the historic element.
And like the only thing I could say, the only stadium I've been to in terms of like some of the aspects of it that are worse than MetLife is actually Soldier Field, because after the game, and unless I missed an exit or something like that, they all funnel you to the same exact exit. And the exit, like it closes in, it's like yay wide. And then you end up going into like a walking bridge over like, I don't know if it's like a highway or whatever it is, but you go into a bridge, and the bridge is probably, I don't know, 8 feet wide for 60, 70,000 people. It takes forever to get out of Soldier Field. So if you ever go there, just note that getting out of there probably took an hour just to walk out to like the main street and stuff. So that was a pain in the ass with Soldier Field. But yeah, in general, MetLife is, again, I'm not just trying to shit on the Jets. There's no we don't need to add on extra things. Like, we have plenty of ammo with the Jets. But yeah, MetLife on top of it all just makes it so bad as well. It's just Giants Stadium was so much better in my opinion. But nonetheless, 2011, the drought begins. Rex Ryan starts taking more control of the roster, ends up drafting Scotty McKnight in the 7th round because that was his son Seth's friend from Clemson. And I think he actually ended up saying that too, which is wild. They ended up letting Braylon Edwards go, and they bring in Plaxico Burress straight out of jail to replace him, like quite literally straight out of jail after, I believe, shooting himself in a club. Get rid of fan favorite Braylon Edwards and bringing him didn't really work out so well. They also let go of fan favorite Jericho Cotchery after bringing in 37-year-old washed up Derek Mason. I'm not going to say Cotchery was much better at that point in his career, but getting rid of him for Derek Mason is just like, what are we doing here? We love the receiving core, and then it went to a dude out of jail and an old dude, but nonetheless, they make Santonio Holmes captain after signing him to a big contract. And he was a malcontent in Pittsburgh. So it's like, okay, Santonio Holmes is doing good for the Jets and all that stuff, but now you sign him to a big contract and you make him a captain. It's like, okay, we're really investing in a guy who's a little bit volatile at this point. Later on in that season, Holmes ends up getting thrown out of the huddle by his teammates for causing a stir. I believe it was against the Dolphins. Literally like mid huddle, 25 seconds left on the play clock. He got kicked out of the huddle by his teammates, like something you don't really see a lot. Rex didn't know about this happening until he was asked about it after the game, which, like, you're the head coach and you didn't know one of your players was thrown out of the huddle by his teammates until after. Like, okay, that's slightly concerning. You have offensive players at this point in 2011 starting to complain about the offensive coordinator, and then you have some rumblings of the defensive players complaining about Mark Sanchez. So this is when it starts to kind of turn downhill a little bit. The Jets in 2011, they still managed to start 8-5, and they only needed one more win to make the playoffs. They had lost the last 3 games, sparked by Giants Victor Cruz on Christmas Eve.
You got to get some positive yards here just so you can punt the ball from a normal distance.
Manning on 3rd and 10. He fires, and the catch is made by Cruz, who breaks free. One man to beat. Victor Cruz down the sideline. Cruz is going to take it all the way, tying an NFL record.
Wild. Just wild. 2012 was my first year with season tickets. The Jets go hard after Hall of Famer quarterback Peyton Manning. They lose out to the Broncos. This is all public that they wanted Peyton Manning, and they're trying to court him and all this stuff. Whilst Mark Sanchez is still on the team, they end up going from, hey, we want a different quarterback, to then, hey, Mark Sanchez, you want a big contract of 5 years, $50 million, which was the largest contract in Jets history at the time. So embarrassing in terms of, hey, we want to get rid of you, to let's extend you. Like the thinking there is just way off. The owner of the Jets, obviously Woody Johnson, pressures the team to bring in Tim Tebow. He lied to him about the role. I think Tebow actually came out and said that after. He believed he would be competing for quarterback 1, and if not, he'd be quarterback 2. But you actually had Kellen Clements, who was quarterback 2 that year. So obviously not good in that scenario. You had talented players who don't re-sign with the Jets that offseason. They finished the year 6-10. This is one of your first years as I guess I don't know if you're a diehard at this point, but as a Jets fan, any memories of 2012? Anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I mean, by this point, this is the first time I'd gone into a season with like a full, there's a previous season I watched and then a full off season of build up and expectations. And I remember hearing about the Tebow trade, and I think I just remember being confused. Like I don't think I was smart enough to know like this is ridiculous and probably the start of the Jets turning into a circus at this point. Because at that point, like I'd watched football for one season, and Tebow won games, he got to the playoffs, he was exciting. So I was kind of excited for that reason, but I think I did have enough wherewithal to know like what is his role, especially with Sanchez sticking around. But the one game I went to that season was the Texans game on Monday Night Football, and that was actually a close game. And there was one point where Tebow almost scored in the end zone right in front of where I was. There's the closest he got to scoring a Jets touchdown. That's kind of all I remember from that. I think Joe McKnight had a kickoff return touchdown that game. That's about it, though. I mean, they started 3-3 that year. You remember they had that great blowout against a rookie Andrew Luck and the Colts. So yes. It wasn't too bad at the beginning, but it went off the rails pretty quickly. They had that overtime loss against the Pats, and then just downhill from there.
Yeah. So this next play, or this next clip. So I went here. I remember specifically. This was Thanksgiving, obviously the Jets-Pats game, the butt fumble, all that stuff. But I remember I'm not arguing with my now wife, who's my girlfriend of 2 years at that time. Like, you're really gonna go to the Jets game on Thanksgiving, miss out on family, all this shit, and whatever argument I made to go to the Jets game, and this was the game, just brutal. But I don't know if I know a lot of people remember the butt fumble, but do you? And I'm putting you on the spot here, Nani, because this is you're a very early fan here.
Yeah.
Do you remember the context of the butt fumble, the entire context, or do you not remember it?
No, it's definitely too far gone for me to remember anything but the one play that gets repeated.
Here's a history lesson, because I kind of forgot about it too. I didn't realize how bad the entire thing was, but this all encapsulates it. So I have a minute clip here, but this is the entire context, because a lot of people just remember the butt fumble. Again, I kind of did too, until I actually went back and found this. Oh my God, it's so much worse than you remember. So here we go.
Pretty much read what Rex Ryan is thinking by looking at his face. Next Jets possession, 4th and 1. Sean Green fumbles. Steve Gregory recovers New England ball at the 17.
So he fumbles the ball on 4th and 1. Very next play.
1st and 10 for the Patriots. Brady finds Shane Vereen, outruns the secondary, takes it 83 yards for the touchdown. Nice play, Sean there.
That's a great play. And Bart Scott obviously got lost in coverage there. Not something you expect from your veteran leader.
Fumble, touchdown, next play.
They pour it on 14-0. 3 plays later. It's a broken play for Mark Sanchez. What just happened?
The next play. This is 3 plays in a row.
Fork lift, not Will Fork, and he took them both down, and they jarred the ball from Sanchez.
He ran into his own guy.
What do you
How
do
does that happen?
Yeah, a little bit of a lack.
Your lineman explained it.
Yeah.
I don't understand what he was looking at. He must have had his eyes closed. Not only did he run into Brandon Moore, he decleated himself. That's pretty hard to do. He slobber knocker himself.
Next play.
So Patriots up 21-0 at that point. Here's the ensuing kickoff. Joe McKnight hit hard by Devin McCoy.
I forgot about this avalanche. There was a point where I turned this game off. I know that might have been it.
This isn't our night. This is a rough night. 3 touchdowns in 53 seconds.
I was sitting in this end zone too. I remember, you have to be kidding me, dude. Again, 4th and 1, fumble. They recover. Next play for the Pats, touchdown. Next play for the Jets, butt fumble for a touchdown. And then the next play, freaking special teams fumble for a touchdown. Just absurd. 3 touchdowns in 53 seconds. Wildness. Just beyond wild with that. Let's see.
Yeah, and it's just this really kind of, because this game relates so much to you had the 2019 game against the Pats on Monday night, the ensuing home opener against the in 2021, which I went to. It's just frustrating how often the Jets can have these it's specifically against the Pats, but it happens against other teams too. Games where they just no show at home. That should only happen. I'll give you one of those every couple of years, but even if you lose at home, you should at least be playing a competitive game. But there's such a good chance that when you go to a Jets game, you're going to be disinterested before halftime. It just really diminishes the value of going, because at least if it's a close game, there are memorable moments throughout the game and you're invested and you could take that with you. But it's a quarter of the time you're going to get a game like this. And that just makes it so hard to want to invest the money to go to a game.
Yeah, and then even some of the close games, they hurt a little bit. You had the ASJ catch non-catch that 1 year. You had the game, which I think Michael Carter just commented on Twitter, where he picks the ball off for an 80-yard pick six, and they called it back for some bullshit roughing the passer penalty on, I think it was JFM in that game. So the Pats are not only because of the actual individual games, but then you also had just their success, and a large reason of their success being behind Bill Belichick, who was supposed to be our coach and resigns on a fucking napkin. It is just wild. 2013 in that offseason, they fire Mike Tannenbaum. They bring in Idzik to be the GM. Idzik trades superstar cornerback Darrelle Revis to Tampa. He drafts chronically injured D. Milner to replace him. doesn't work out, and he only plays 3 years in the NFL. I attended that draft at Radio City Music Hall. I swore to myself after that draft that would be the last draft I ever attend, and that's just changed a lot. I could tell you, at least back at Radio City, you had to go the day before. You had to wait in line for about, I don't know, 6-7 hours to get a ticket to come back the next day. And then you come back the next day, you wait in a line again for like 6-7 hours to get into the draft. Like, it was just maybe not 6-7 hours. Maybe the next day was like 3 or 4, but still it's like 10-11 hours of waiting in line. And I could tell you at that point, I was a little bit of an idiot, and I was like 20 years old, and I may have had a couple of beverages on the way to get to the game, to New York. And then I'm standing in line, and you can't piss anywhere. And if you freaking get out of line, you lose your spot. So like it just sucked. It just sucked all around. I really hated it. But nonetheless, yeah, they draft D Miller that year, and they actually drafted Sheldon Richardson, which worked out. But I remember sitting behind, I think it was EJ Manuel's uncle. And I remember like we were talking a little bit of shit about EJ, and then like they like turned around and said something to us. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize we were that like, with people who matter right now. But yeah, it's like you're sitting behind all the cameras and ESPN and stuff, and you couldn't even really see the stage. Like it's just so much better on TV, in my opinion. But nonetheless, they draft Geno Smith in the second round to compete with Mark Sanchez. Later on in that preseason, Rex Ryan puts in Mark Sanchez late in the preseason game against the Giants to win the Snoopy Bowl. So you have Mark Sanchez competing for your starting quarterback spot behind third and fourth string offensive linemen against third and fourth stringers who want to make a name for themselves. So they're going to try to light up Mark Sanchez. He injured his shoulder, and he's out for the season because Rex Ryan put him in during a preseason game to win the Snoopy Bowl, which just kind of shows you how dumb Rex Ryan was at the end. And people are like, oh yeah, bring this guy back. It's like, what are we doing? 2013, they end up going 8-8. They were very fraudulent 8-8 though, as their losses were blowouts and their wins were very close. And even that year, the first win was against the Buccaneers with Geno on that game-winning drive. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, I remember. The only reason they won that game was because of it wasn't phantom, but it was a bullshit roughing penalty because like Geno was like running out of bounds, but they tried to push him out because they didn't want even extra yards because of the last drive, and they called a bullshit penalty in my opinion, and they ended up winning that game, I think on a field goal. But nonetheless, Rex Ryan throughout the season is called to be fired by the fans. He's brought back after a meaningless Week 17 win versus the Dolphins. That was a talk the entire year. He's going to get fired. He's going to get fired. He's going to get fired. He lost it. And then you win a game against the Dolphins that's completely meaningless. And let's bring him back. It's like, why? Like, what are we doing? So I was pissed off that they brought him back. And this is the year that Rex Ryan is discovered to have a tattoo of his wife wearing Mark Sanchez jersey. Which is weird, dude. I would never get a tattoo of my wife wearing another dude's jersey. That is beyond weird. I could not imagine doing that, but that's Rex Ryan for you. Any memories from 13 for you for this year with Geno in his rookie year?
Yeah, I think this is where it starts to get pretty clear for me. I definitely remember watching all of these games. But yeah, like you noted there, a lot of thrilling, close wins that were at times very fluky. There's the Patriots game that they won. There was, what was it? They missed a potential winning field goal, but there was a penalty on it, and they tried again, and they won. And then when they lost, it was just a colossal blowout. So I think it's interesting to look at. I just pulled it up here, but the 2013 team, their point differential while going 8-8 was a -97. So they were definitely a fluky 8-8, and that's why, like, with 2019 when the Jets brought back Adam Gase, like 7-9, like, okay, it's not awful, I guess, but it was pretty clear that was not a good team. But sometimes it feels like ownership will make decisions based on the win loss, like, oh, flip a couple of wins, we would have been in the playoffs. But like, you should really look at the whole picture of how they played versus just how many games you won.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that stat. That's a pretty wild point differential for a team again who's even. So 2014, I mentioned this is my first year podcasting with Jet Nation, which I guess just a little bit of backstory. I kind of always, not even disliked ESPN and stuff. At this point, I didn't. In 2014, I was 21. It was a thing where I was calling into Jet Nation. That's actually when Tyson was running Jet Nation, calling into his show a little bit. And then he left for whatever reason, which I wouldn't disclose even if I knew. He left Jet Nation, and then they brought in Brandon Dowling was his name to take over Jet Nation's podcast, and I ended up calling into his show. After I called in, he ended up like DMing me, I think on Twitter, and was like, "Hey man, like, would you like to do the podcast with me? Because I like your takes, whatever." And then I ended up podcasting with Brandon Dowling, first year in 2014. So it's been 11 years I've been doing this type of stuff. So it's crazy it's been that long. But nonetheless, GM Mike Tannenbaum is fired in that offseason. John Idzik is hired. The famous Idzik 12 that year. Out of the 12 players, only Quincy Enunwa works out. 5-year career, 1,600 yards and 5 touchdowns for the Jets. The rest of the players were out of the NFL in 2 to 3 years. Can you bring up that draft class, Nania, while you're at it, while you're free with your tabs and all that stuff over there? Brutal. Brandon Dixon, Jeremiah George. I think that was Jalen Saunders. I think that wasn't the Donahue year. I think the Donahue year might have been the year after. I forget. Maybe Donahue. Okay, a couple of years after. You had so many guys that year who just obviously were brutal. But jog my memory of the 13 or the 12 of the Idzik picks that year.
Yeah, here we go. I pulled it up. Calvin Pryor, Jace Amaro, Dexter McDougal, Jalen Saunders, Shaq Evans, Dakota Dozier. That's probably your best pick of this class, most successful. Or no, Quincy, then Dozier. Jeremiah George, Brandon Dixon, Quincy Enunwa, IK Enampali, Taj Boyd, and Trevor Riley.
Dude,
quite the draft class.
I remember at this point I wasn't into the film and stuff at all. But I remember specifically watching like highlights after everybody was picked. Like that's the level of fan I was at that point. And even Shaq Evans highlights, I watch. I'm like, dude, he had like 700-800 yards his last year at UCL, and his highlights sucked. I'm like, this guy is gonna blow, dude. Like he didn't do anything in college. So yeah, brutal draft class. I remember having high hopes for Calvin Pryor. I've always been like a big fan of hard hitting safeties. Obviously, that didn't work out. Jace Amaro thought he was gonna be something, never amounted to anything, but obviously a beyond brutal draft class. So thank you for reminding me there. I'm going to remove that one and bring it back to this. Yeah, brutal. So in 2014, I'll continue. Idzik signs Dimitri Patterson to start at cornerback. I don't know if you remember this. He goes AWOL.
Yeah,
misses the preseason game and then is cut 8 days later. So again, I was podcasting at that point and we're like talking about, oh yeah, well maybe he could be decent. And it's like he didn't show up to the game and he got cut. And he was supposed to be a starter. This is like right before the regular season. We're like, what are we doing? And then that's when they transitioned to safety Antonio Allen to play corner. And I put it goes how you'd expect. Not well. Antonio Allen did not do good at corner that year at all. Gino ends up getting benched. Michael Vick starts. Michael Vick later admits that he was not prepared to start. Which how are you a backup quarterback in the NFL and you admit that you're not prepared to start? Like how bad of an environment, coaching, atmosphere, whatever you want to say, to have that situation. The fact that he even admitted that is just beyond wild. But again, we are the Jets. Jets fans fly planes and buy billboards to fire GM John Idzik. They finished the year 4-12. But I didn't remember that until after I did a little bit of research. But yeah, Michael Vick admitting that he was not prepared to start is quite wild.
I don't remember that exact quote. I remember him being really bad. I just don't remember him saying that.
Yeah. I don't know if it was that year or honestly like years later, but I found it somewhere. I don't think I'm making that up. So moving on to 2015. Oh, there's the sign. FireJohnIdzik.com. 2015, they fired John Idzik and Rex Ryan was fired as well. Mike McCagnon, Todd Bowles hired. Geno Smith is having a good training camp and projected to be the starter. He gets his jaw broken by teammate IK Enampali, and he's out multiple months. I specifically remember my wife got me like some, little like vacation getaway. Like we were 22 years old to somewhere in PA. We were in PA for the weekend. She wanted to go see the Minions movie. So I went and see the first Minions movie with my wife, or at the time girlfriend. And in the middle of the movie, I'm getting blown up on my phone that Geno Smith just got punched out and is going to be out for months. It's like, are you like, what is going on? I had to like do an emergency podcast from whatever shitty hotel room we were in. So obviously not going into the season with much hope. Ryan Fitzpatrick takes over, leads the Jets to a 10-5 record before week 17. Needs one win to get into the playoffs, and he throws 3 picks in the fourth quarter versus the Bills. I specifically remember I went to the Pats game. Obviously, you have the whole Decker play in the end zone, overtime win, and all that stuff when Bill Belichick, pretty crazily kicked the ball off to the Jets in overtime, decided to, which is crazy. And then I'm like, all before the game, like if they win this game, we're going to freaking Buffalo. We didn't think they were going to win. They win. We drive to Buffalo. Fitzpatrick throws 3 picks in the fourth quarter. You had Chris Ivory, who was dominating that year, only have 6 carries for 81 yards. One of those runs was like 40, 50 yards. And we're all questioning, like, why the hell is Chris Ivory not playing in a game to get us into the playoffs? And it later came out that they wanted to preserve him for the playoffs. So they were thinking about the playoffs before they even got into them. So that is great. So thank you, Jets. Revis was brought back that year after winning the Super Bowl with the Patriots, and he falls apart at the end of the season. I remember seeing he got shit on versus DeAndre Hopkins against the Texans. Also got absolutely dominated. It seemed like Sammy Watkins that game was just running hitch after hitch after hitch after hitch. He was playing 10 yards off, and every hitch would go for 6 to 8 yards. So it's like, what are we doing here? So brutal end to the season. So anything to add there, Nania? 2015, the Bills game, anything like that? I actually, here, while you're racking your memory, I'll show you the 3 picks.
Oh, definitely. Let's watch it. That was the crushing one because they had momentum at this point. You're behind the 8 ball already. But that first one, they had a great drive. If they score it there, I think you win. The defense had locked in at that point.
Yeah, man. We've been through some tough stuff here, and of course they're wearing the pickle pants, which you should have known was gonna be a loss,
obviously,
right off the jump.
Although they had some good wins in them this year, but in general, it's not a good idea.
Did they have good wins in them? I can't even remember this year.
The Giants game, they wore those.
Oh, this year. You're talking about 2015.
Oh yeah. I do remember that one, but no, this is definitely the most entertaining Jets season I've watched. It's not even really a debate there. But yeah, I remember having very high hopes for Geno's 3rd season. I was super optimistic that he was gonna break out with Marshall coming in, just it being his 3rd year, and still riding the hype of that perfect passer rating game to close 2014. I remember my dad is a DJ, and I would work parties with him, like weddings and stuff. And when I was bored, I just want to say that you seem like the exact opposite of a guy who's a DJ. I can't imagine you at parties like just. I'm just unpacking stuff, and I'm not. That's his job. But
you're not doing intros and stuff. You're saying.
Yeah. So like when I was not doing all that, I would like write my NFL predictions on a piece of paper, and I think I saw it recently. I kept it, but I had like my Geno Smith stat predictions for 2015 written out. It was like 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I was very optimistic. So when he got hurt, I think my optimism drained, but they came out and really quickly inspired a lot of faith. It was really the defense. I mean, we think a lot about, Fitz set the touchdown record, and Decker and Marshall were responsible for that, obviously, but it was really the defense and the takeaways they were getting, how amazing that defensive line was against the run with snacks. You had rookie Leonard Williams, you had Muhammad Wilkerson. So it was a stacked front 7 on the defense, and Revis had a good first half of the year, then he fell off.
Was Calvin Pace still on the team at that point? I
think he was. I'm pretty sure.
I think he might have been.
Oh, Sheldon Richardson, obviously. I don't know how I forgot about him, but he missed a few games that year. So I was thinking about the beginning. But I just pulled up the defensive stats. Lorenzo Malden, I remember he was like our hope for an edge rusher. It's good that the Jets, at least these past few years, have finally had some legit edge rushers. We were all the way in the trenches with the edge rushers for a very long time. But as much as I remember the receiving prowess that year and Chris Ivory, the defense that year was outstanding. I think that was the the core of why that team almost won 11 games and made the playoffs.
Yeah, that and like a lot of Fitzpatrick's plays were like just him like chucking the ball up to Brandon Marshall and praying that he made a play. Or dude, like Eric Decker, like underratedly, just one of my favorite Jets too. Like I just loved how how good of a route runner he was and how dependable he was and how like reliable in the media and stuff. Like I really like Decker as a Jet. I still have his jersey. I haven't really rocked it in quite a while, but maybe I'll I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because of his wife and because he's I'm comfortable with my sexuality, like a good looking dude that I feel like if I put on a Decker jersey, I feel like I'm like some teenage girl or something. Like I just feel weird wearing a Decker jersey because like I think girls like him and it makes me feel odd, but nonetheless. 2016, they bring Fitzpatrick back after a long holdout. I don't know if you remember this, Nania, but during that holdout, they admitted they wanted him back. So you have a holdout with a guy and you're like, yeah, we want you back. So here's more leverage gifted to you, Fitzpatrick. The locker room was divided on bringing him back. He ends up signing a 1-year, $12 million contract, which at the time was pretty hefty. He ends up throwing 12 touchdowns and 17 picks that year, featuring a 6-interception game versus the Chiefs in week 3. And we were in that game. Like, I don't remember the exact score, but he threw 6 picks and the Chiefs weren't good at that point. So we were consistently in it. He just kept throwing picks. It was crazy. The Jets ended up going 5-11 in 2016. In that year, I ended up attending the Cardinals game and, they got beat 28-3. I remember like some point it was like 21-3. I took my Jets jersey off. I was not being rambunctious at all. I was just sitting there with like a white t-shirt on. And I think I told you this story, but I got dome shotted with a glizzy that game. Somebody threw a hot dog in the back of my head. And I'm like, bro, I'm not even cheering. Like, I'm not standing up. I'm not doing anything. And I got a hot dog to the back of the head. I was like, this is just awful, bro. Like, get me out of here.
In Arizona?
Yeah, in Arizona, dude, they were actually a little more hostile than I expected. And then,
I was gonna say, like, I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, they were a little more hostile, dude. Like West Coast people, they like I guess Arizona, obviously. You go to LA and stuff like to some of those games, like you got to be careful. But yeah, like now if I was standing up on the seat and cheering and yelling at fans, I don't understand. But I was so out of it because they were getting their shit kicked in. Like I don't know. Sucked. I ended up going back to. I think we flew back immediately after. I'm pretty sure this was a night game. So then like you go back to the airport 10 o'clock at night, like late night flight. Like it was just beyond awful. 2016. So I really don't even have many memories of this season other than the Cardinals game because it was just so freaking bad. You have anything to add to 2016?
I mean, I remember at this point, I don't think I had if I were analyzing the 2015 Jets the way I do now, I think I would know. Like, okay, Fitzpatrick kind of benefited from everything else. They had a solid O-line that year too, because they still had, it was later in Mangold and Brick's career, but James Carpenter was really good. So he had a lot working for him. I think I would have known, like, okay, he had a magical season for you. Let him go, find another direction. But at that point, I was desperate for them to re-sign him. I remember checking the news constantly during school and just wanting to see something happen. So I had high expectations for this year. And they signed Matt Forte. I thought that was a great pickup for the offense. Again, not knowing that it was a 31-year-old running back. In that game against the Bengals to open up, it was a heartbreaker. They actually played well in that one. And
they got like Quincy 7 sacks that game.
Yeah, they were getting so many sacks, and Quincy looked like he was ready to break out and give them another weapon, which he did. Yeah. He was like the bright spot of this season. But they lost that one in heartbreaking fashion. But then that Bills game, they got revenge. It's not the same in week 2, but that was an exciting. That was the one. Fitzpatrick was amazing in that game. It was maybe his best game as a Jet, including 2015. But obviously, that was not the next week he goes out and throws 6 picks. So and then some of those games early on, like it just got out of hand quickly with Kansas City and Seattle, Pittsburgh, Arizona. So I actually did go to the Cleveland game this year in week 8, drove all the way up there from North Carolina, and they won that one, but not as convincingly as you would like against a winless Josh McCown Cleveland team, future Jets quarterback.
Yeah, that was so I remember the Buffalo game. I think Quincy had like a really nice catch up to the left sideline with the top of his helmet that game. The Cleveland game, was that the game where That's another game where Quincy like dragged
he
broke
like juked
3 or 4
guys
tackles
and dragged him in.
Yeah. I see James Walsh here said, didn't Sheldon and Marsh have a fight in the locker room in 2016? Good addition there because they did, James. So thank you for pointing that out. I didn't add that in. And D Stern said, I know you're talking 2016 now, but 2015 will forever haunt me. Yeah, we just went over that, showed the picks. Beyond brutal, but no, I remember it. And I think Blau Powell had a pretty good year this year. But yeah, 5-11. Moving on. Oh, there you go. 2016, Sheldon Richardson arrested for going 143 miles per hour with his nephew in the car. Car smells like marijuana and had a gun in the car with like a 13-year-old in there. The idiot, sorry, he's an idiot in this situation. He pulls into a driveway to get away from the cops, but his brake lights are still on. And you're talking about running from cops in a Bentley, which is a car that sticks out very, very much. And then they're driving by a driveway and like, oh, look, a Bentley with its brake lights on. That's probably their guy. And he gets arrested. It's like, what are we doing? You have star players battle out in the locker room. Defensive players start speaking out about how bad the offense is. And then as I think James mentioned, Sheldon Richardson ended up talking crap to Brandon Marshall in the locker room. They have to be separated. So just beyond bad. 2017, the Jets end up parting ways with Fitzpatrick. They bring in career journeyman Josh McCown. This is the year that being realistic, I feel like a little stale at Jet Nation. I ended up going to TOJ at that point. The Jets ended up skip drafting Patrick Mahomes, which realistically they probably I added this for a little bit of flair to the presentation because I know a lot of people know who Patrick Mahomes is. I think they probably would have drafted Watson realistically, just based on how the draft was going that year. But they skipped drafting. I said Patrick Mahomes, who the Jets. Who thought the Jets would draft him because they drafted Christian Hackenberg the year prior. Instead, they selected Jamal Adams. So instead of picking, who at the time was great, Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, who again came out, I guess, after and said that the Jets, he thought the Jets may draft him because they had Christian Hackenberg, who, fun fact, never goes on to throw a regular season NFL pass. And that's our reasoning for skipping those two guys, which thank God on Deshaun Watson. Mahomes has played in 8 NFL seasons, played in 5 Super Bowls, and won 3 of them. The Jets finished 5-11. They fired John Morton for Jeremy Bates, who was in the mountains for 2 years and not coaching in the NFL. So 2017, you have Josh McCown. The team is not good, but Josh McCown puts up some games of 30 points like multiple times that year. The offense actually looks pretty good considering the lack of talent they have. Good OC, and you fire him for a guy who's been not been in the NFL for 2 years because he's hiking. It's like, so again, just ridiculous. Any 2017 memories from you or any of the chat? I'm sure the chat's starting to comment a little bit about some of these years because it's more in the recent memory.
Yeah, I remember having really low expectations. I thought they were going to be tanking for maybe Darnold in 2018 among probably Darnold. I mean, I think at that point Allen hadn't really emerged yet, or Mayfield was in the mix. Like it was like the suck for Sam year. So I thought that's what they were going for, which ended up happening in a different way. But they had those terrible first 2 games. It seemed like it was chugging right along, but then they got weirdly competitive in that heart of the season. They had a 3-game winning streak against Jacksonville. That was an exciting game with that Powell touchdown run where he was down and no one touched him. Then you had that
he jumped
Pats
over
game.
Somebody, fell and then kept running.
Yeah. He dove and through the pile. No one touched him. Then you had that Pats game, which they should have won. Who knows if the trajectory of the season changes from that point? They would have been 4-2. They would have been in first place in the division, but they were close in every single game they played. I just pulled up the schedule here, starting in week 3 through week 13. Which is the last game that McCown played healthy. They either won or lost by 1 score in all of those games. So they were a competitive team. It was frustrating once they raised those expectations and showed you they could win games. When they lost I remember Atlanta was frustrating. Miami, McCown had that terrible pick at the end of the game. It became frustrating because it felt like they were capable of winning some of these games, but they just made really stupid errors sometimes. But it was a lot more than anyone expected for them to be this competitive. And then McCown went out and they, Bryce Petty at quarterback. You weren't going to do anything with that. But I felt optimistic after this year. They really exceeded expectations, I think.
Petty, who admitted that he was learning coverages from playing Madden, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, that is such a problem. That this is what you're learning from. But yeah, and again, I remember that year. I don't remember how many games, but I think there was at least 2 or 3 games where they put up like 30 or 30 plus, or right by 30. So like they were actually pretty solid in terms of offensively, considering the talent. And then get rid of the OC. 2018, they draft
now
Darnold.
the Lions OC getting his next shot. I think, or was he with the Raiders at one point? I know he was. I don't know if he's been an offensive coordinator since then. I'm gonna pull it up right now. But this is gonna be his first OC role since 2017. So curious to see how John Morton does over there.
Yeah, so 2018, they end up drafting Sam Darnold, obviously. This is the offseason. You have Robbie Anderson getting pulled over for going 105 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. He ran 2 red lights. Excuse my French here. Cover your kids' ears. He, after he gets pulled over, he tells the cop he's going to, I'm not going to say it, F his wife, and then, C-U-M in her eye. I know it sounds dirty even to say it, but quite the quote from Robbie Anderson to the cop, the famous sun god there. Just telling somebody they're going to come in their wife's eye is aggressive. Second-year player Dylan Donahue causes car accident while he's driving the wrong way in the Lincoln Tunnel while drunk. Awesome for the Jets players. Obviously, again, they traded up from 6 to 3 to draft Sam Darnold. They traded it was 3 second-round picks plus their number 6, right?
Yeah.
The Jets lack talent. They finished the season 4-12 that year. Darnold is up and down in his rookie year, throwing 17 touchdowns and 15 picks. Any memories of 2018, the Darnold year, the first play being the pick 6 for the Lions? Obviously, a really fun comeback that year. I think this was the year that I broke down film of every single game with Marcus Coleman, which was beyond cool for me that year. Any 2018 memories?
Yeah, I think I had irrationally high expectations for this season with the rookie quarterback, and considering the OC change like we talked about. But I kind of thought they were going to be good. But they started 3-3. They had that obviously amazing opener, then a ugly 3-game losing streak. But they had that bounce back with that great stretch at home with Denver. Darnold had a bunch of bombs in that game. Then the Colts, that was maybe his best game as a Jet, going toe-to-toe with Andrew Luck. He was just consistent, striking the middle of the field consistently. And then it just was downhill from that point. You could just see they didn't have it. This was a bad team. They didn't have offensive talent. Even defensively, they were really bad this year. So, this is where Mike McCagnon started to add up, because previously I think you were, early on, he, spent up on some veterans that got them some wins in 2015, but now you're starting to see the results of years of bad drafting.
Yeah, Dylan Donahue. That's all crazy. Obviously, that year you have the Jets who fire head coach Todd Bowles. They hired Adam Gase. We somehow found the positive in that. I remember specifically like, the offense is good and whatever else. He was recommended by Peyton Manning, which I believe was his revenge for the 41-0 playoff loss that he took to the Jets in 2002. Adam Gase is known in Miami for having issues with players, fighting with the GM and owner, going behind their back. Inflexible offense, won't adjust to players' strengths. Terrible press conference. He brings in Le'Veon Bell. The GM brings in Le'Veon Bell, who Adam Gase is vocal about not wanting. And also, you bring in Le'Veon Bell, who is known for being patient behind a good offensive line, and you bring him behind a shit offensive line. In what world was that ever going to work? It just didn't make sense. But this is a little bit from the press conference. And I remember, obviously, not having high hopes for Adam Gase and kind of convincing myself. Then after the press conference, I'm like, oh my god, dude, what is wrong with this guy? Like on some type of drug here. But all of it combined, and again, just bringing in Le'Veon behind an offensive line that sucks. Like it just didn't make sense at all, and not many high hopes into 2019. I think I continue a little bit. Yeah. They start the season 1-7. They mean winningless games to end the season 7-9. The first game of the season that year, they're up 16-3 on the Bills going to the fourth quarter. They end up losing 17-16. I believe Vedvik missed an extra point and a field goal, like a close one that game, maybe even 3 field goals. I forget. Darnold was out the next 3 weeks after week one because of mono, which is crazy. Jamal Adams starts to hint trade request, becomes an asshole in the media. Darnold barely improves, throwing 19 touchdowns and 13 picks, and questions about his future arise. I think you brought up this in comparison to the 2016 or 17 season in terms of the wins and stuff like that.
2013, yeah.
Yeah, 2013. So this was a brutal year in 2019 with the Jets. I don't care that they finished 7-9. It was not fun.
Yeah, I think at that midway point when they were 1-7, I think I started calling for Gase to be fired, and a lot of people did. Obviously, it was year one, but I mean, the Panthers just fired Frank Reich in his first year, and he had accomplished a hell of a lot more than Adam Gase did at this point. So I think it was they wasted a season in 2020 by bringing him back, and the result of that should have been the number 1 pick, but they messed that up also. But I think, and in this 2019 season, like, it was the thing that sticks out to me the most is how bad it was when Darnold was out. Like, we're talking about second year Sam Darnold. He wasn't, that good to where he should be so vital to the offense functioning. But when he was out, they did nothing those 3 games. Those are 3 of the worst offense. That was one of the worst stretches of offensive play I think any NFL team has ever had. Those 3 games.
Well, that, and then it was like one of the first plays against the Browns the week after, and it's on like Thursday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. I think it was Thursday Night Football.
And Trevor Siemian I was at that game.
Yeah, like snapped his leg in half versus Myles Garrett, and then I think, oh God, who was the quarterback? He was a quarterback from the Giants that year or a couple of years prior, and he was a third string, and he ended up coming in and being absolutely brutal.
Oh, Luke Falk.
Was it Luke Falk?
Playing for the Jets, who came in?
Yeah. He was a third string that year. Yeah, just beyond brutal. And then on top of it all, like, you don't really have a lot to look forward to. And Jamal Adams is the only kind of exciting thing in your organization. And now he's like starting to be a dick and wanting to get traded. Like, that was a really hard year. The famous image there of out indefinitely mononucleosis is just brutal. 2020 started JetX. There's Nania, Rivka, Sabo, and Wayne Corbett action. And really at this point, so for me, I was at TOJ for 2 years, and I was doing it for like 6 or 7 years at that point. I'm like, dude, I think I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. The Jets suck. It's just not fun anymore. And then I think Nania reached out and was like, hey, think about doing some film for our new site here. And then we obviously, and that's where we restarted, or I didn't start the website. Nania and Sabo did, and eventually got some ownership, but nonetheless, started JetX. They fire McKagan after the NFL draft that year, which how do you fire the GM after the draft? They hired Joe Douglas well into the offseason, which gives him zero flexibility to address the roster. Douglas rightfully trades Jamal Adams at that point. The Jets go 2-14, and Nania, I cannot emphasize how much we were slacking and talking to each other, just talking about all the scenarios and how the Jets had to lose and this team had to lose and all that stuff to get Trevor Lawrence. And then you have Braden Mann, who makes a tackle against the Rams and all that stuff. But yeah, 2-14, win 2 meaningless games, week 15 with the Braden Mann tackle, and week 16 at the end of the season. And that was the Browns game where like they had like 5 receivers out and like tight ends were playing receiver and shit. They moved to the second pick instead of number 1, which we should have had, and they missed out on Trevor Lawrence. 9 of 14 losses were by 2 or more scores. 9 of 14. 7 of those 9s were by 3 scores or more. That is a ridiculous stat. 9 of 14 by 2 or more, with 7 of those being 3 scores or more. Just absurd. And legitimately, the best moment of that entire year was the Henry Ruggs play to lose against the Raiders. That was my favorite memory from 2020. Seriously, that was the most excited I ever was.
That's honestly for me up there in all-time Jets moments. I was so excited about that. And this is honestly like talking about memorability, and that doesn't mean positive, obviously, but it's one of the more memorable Jets seasons. I remember this more than 21, 16, like late or most of 2023. Like I was pretty locked in because there was a goal to shoot for, and it finally felt like the Jets were capable of actually getting there because they were so reliable week to week. You knew what you were going to get. And you know, while all this was going on, there were some, like, we were trying to grasp at straws and find things to be positive about with the players that, you know, that were developing for the future. But, you know, Becton had a solid rookie year. But then, like, we were trying to reach with, you know, Mims made a catch every couple weeks. LaMichael Pirine existed.
Wasn't Mims more of like a small sample size? Like Mims had, like, towards the end of the season, or am I thinking of Bryce Hall? Wasn't Mims just like a couple of games like stacked up together where he played really well? It was like I think I'm misconstruing him with some D Miller games, honestly.
He missed a lot of games as a rookie. I think he had like a good little stretch of like 40, 50-yard games with like a couple of
Chargers.
He would get like a couple like jump balls. Yeah. I just pulled up his game. So when he debuted in week 7, his first 5 games, he was putting up about 57 yards a game. So yeah, he came in and showed some flashes, but obviously it was just all jump balls, and there was never really anything in addition to that.
Yeah, no doubt. Moving on from 2020, 2021, Nani and I were both at this game. We didn't sit together, but we walked in together. I remember you came up to the bar with us in Tebow, and that's the first time we met you in Tebow. 2021, they fire Adam Gase. They bring in Robert Saleh. They trade Sam Darnold to Carolina. The Jets end up drafting Zach Wilson, the number 2 overall pick that year. They lose to the Panthers in week 1. The first touchdown of the game was former Jets quarterback Sam Darnold to former Jets wide receiver Robbie Anderson on a 57-yard pass, which I'll show real quick.
Play action.
We were here to witness this.
Darnold steps up, deep shot for Robbie Anderson. He's got him. Touchdown.
They ended up losing week 2, 25-6 to the Patriots, and Zach Wilson throws 4 interceptions that game.
Another game that I was at.
Yeah, so you go from week 1 losing to Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson to week 2, your rookie quarterback throwing 4 picks, to week 3 losing 26-0 to the Broncos. So you're talking about week 3 of the season. The season's already over. Like, it already feels like it's done. We're getting blown out. Terrible losses. Quarterback sucks, and they finished the season 14 or sorry, not 14-3. Yeah, right. 4-13. So comments on 2021.
Yeah, I think this is another season where I was probably a little too optimistic, you know, just probably just because Gase was leaving. I was like, oh, we have competent coaching and a real system. But I knew the tight end thing was a huge issue. They just ignored it despite being so vital in that scheme. The defense still didn't really have serious pieces, although, no, they signed Carl Lawson was it this year? It was this year they signed Carl Lawson, right? And he got hurt. So when that happened, that was a huge blow for the defense.
Yeah. He was injured in joint practice against
the Titans game but the Titans game in week 4 is one of the more fun games I've been to, just because, you know, prior to that point, the Jets had been so anemic on offense. So to just see them be competent and hit a few big plays was really fun. I remember that game was so empty. I was sitting on the upper deck. It was half full. My whole row had nobody, and I wasn't even that high up. So at the end, like, I was just like running up and down the row, like when Fat Randy missed that kick to give the Jets that win, and I was like hugging random people I didn't even know. Right? Yeah. So that was a fun game in a mostly boring and miserable season.
Yeah, that's the rollout point to Corey Davis game with Zach Wilson. I remember specifically, I'll always remember that game because, you know, my friend Tom, he's a little bit of an idiot, and he's gotten better with a little bit of age, but he was talking shit to like a group of like 10 people. He ends up getting thrown out of the game, And then like I'm sitting there by myself. I think it was with one other person. It was like me and my buddy Vinny, and we're sitting there. And now like there's like 10 people talking shit to us, like want to fight. I'm like, dude, I didn't even say anything. Like it was my friend who got thrown out. Like don't take that on me. Like what is this about? They ended up winning the game. It was fun, but obviously still a miserable season in the long run. But that game was fun against the Titans. At least we have that. Let's see. I don't know if I have anything else. 2020. Yeah, 2022. I would say this is one of my, which is sad, but one of the better seasons.
Yeah.
As you saw the picture before to start it, Soldier Field, drove to Green Bay, went skydiving in Green Bay, my Sauce jersey, and then went to the Packers game, and it was freaking awesome seeing Jets win in Lambeau. Never expected that. They started the season hot, 5-2, including a blowout of the Packers, 27-10 in Lambeau Field, which again it's hard to expect as a Jets fan. Zach Wilson is benched multiple times that year. He finishes with only 6 touchdowns and 7 picks. That doesn't even sound right, but I guess it is. Wow. While benched, backup quarterback plays somewhat well. Team then prints and wears Mike White shirts, alienating Zach Wilson. Would you really think about it? Like your second year quarterback gets benched, and the team is wearing backup quarterback shirts, Mike White shirts on the bus like the game. Like how bad of an environment must that have? Like that Zach Wilson, obviously plenty of negative about him, but like how shitty that made him feel. Like that was a really shitty thing by the Jets to do that realistically, like the team. But nonetheless, after that year, the fans want to move on from Zach Wilson. They drafted the number 2 pick after only 2 years. But I kind of forgot about that. Like what shitty teammates to Zach Wilson to wear a different quarterback, shirt, but nonetheless.
Yeah, and they tried to insist. I remember they were asked about it, that it didn't have to do with him or anything. But it's definitely I think it's just indicative of the culture with the Jets. I think under Saleh initially it felt like it was a better culture just because you're coming off of Gase. So there's you're coming off Gase, and Todd Bowles had a rough tenure. Rex Ryan obviously was a complete circus. So in comparison to some of that, it felt better just because some of the obvious like mishaps and shenanigans weren't happening. But I think beneath all of that, it just wasn't the most like tight knit and kind of committed. Like the accountability, I think, is what was lacking. Like that's something that I think a good coach who really has control of the locker room and has them dialed into winning, I think would probably shut down. Like, I don't think Aaron Glenn is going to allow the locker room to have Tyrod Taylor shirts in week 3, or whatever the situation might be. So I think there are like little things like that kind of were indicators that maybe this wasn't as strong of a culture for the long run that we thought it was going to be. But yeah, like you said, I mean, 9 weeks into the season, this was the best Jets football we've seen since 2015 for sure. And obviously you maybe could extend it to the Bears game because that was fun, but the Bears were awful. They didn't even have Fields in that game. I think the Patriots game before that overrides the Bears game because that was just horrendous in week 11. Coming out of the bye, that punt fest, they had 103 yards of offense in that game. It's playing for first place in the division against a not good Pats team. But the Bills game definitely made up for the first Patriots game because that was just a huge surprise coming off of that Pats game. So, yeah, I mean, these are like some of the most memorable wins. The Browns come back, the Steelers come back, destroying the Dolphins, destroying the Packers in Lambeau, beating Josh Allen at home. So these are some of the most memorable games that they had here.
Yeah. Eagle, I just looked it up. He threw 4 picks against the Pats, not 5. I just looked it up too. I was like, I think it was only 4, but I double checked it. It was only 4. But yeah, man, this too, like I remember specifically being on the or just waiting for, my plane after the Green Bay game, and we're all happy they're 5-2. And this is when Elijah Moore comes out and says that he's not happy or whatever. It's like, what? Like, we're fucking winning, like for the first time in years. And this guy's bitching about targets, and he was always the guy, like, and listen, man, like I'm not going to say it's a catch-all, but once you have a receiver start tweeting out Bible quotes and shit, be concerned because I've never seen it end well. They're always kind of divas and just a little bit psychotic in my opinion. But Yeah, that was disappointing too, because I liked him more coming out of college. I enjoyed his college film at Ole Miss. I think he should, I think he'd still be a productive receiver in the NFL. What team? Where did he go this year? I remember seeing like he went to a decent team with a good quarterback. I was like, oh wow,
Buffalo.
Oh shit, you're right. Okay,
yeah.
Nonetheless, move on. 2023. As we know, Aaron Rodgers becomes available for via trade. Jets are the only team interested in that he's playing for. We have to wait through this for the decision through like his darkness shit and all that stuff. You have GM Joe Douglas who rushes getting him and ends up sending a lot more than he should have, because we were literally the only team that he would play for, and we kind of had the Packers by the balls, but we gave in and gave them way too much in my opinion. But nonetheless, you have Jets fans and bookies consider the team to be a playoff favorite for the first time in years. Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles on the fourth play of on offense in the first game. And again, Vinny Testaverde at coin toss was just a bad omen. Just a guy who tore his Achilles too in early. Was it a preseason or warm up for the Jets or whatever it was? In 98, a year they were supposed to be great, right? 98, yeah, I think so. Next week I fly to Dallas.
99, yeah. After
99,
yeah. Season, yeah.
Yes, after 98, yeah, and was it a preseason game or was it warm-ups or something crazy like that? Nonetheless,
yeah, when it was exactly, yeah.
Crazy environment. Tears his Achilles, which I'll play. It's it.
Protection breaks down and time runs out. Down
Fly to
goes
Dallas,
Rodgers
knowing they're going to get dominated because of the letdown of Rodgers being out for probably the year at that point. They get beat down 30-10. Was not fun at all. The Jets can't keep playoff hopes long enough for Rodgers to come back. So he, sits the end of the year. He could have came back potentially. They finished the season 7-9. After they finish 7-9, you have Woody Johnson, who then raises the ticket prices and asks for payments early, which I was furious about. It's like, we're just expecting playoffs. Dude tears his Achilles and you raise the prices. Like, are you being serious? After all the shit we've seen for the last 10 years, this is what you're doing to the fans? 12 years? Like, this is just ridiculous. Yeah, man, 2023, any game one of the season, James Walsh, thank you. Again, I was 99, I was 6, so I don't really remember much or if any of it. But any comments? There's a lot of comments because at this point, we're balls deep in Jets coverage and stuff. But any glaring stuff for 2023?
Yeah, I just remember being at that opening game and the hype going into it, and the noise on that first drive on defense was the loudest that I've experienced at a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think coming over the broadcast and comparing it may have had a chance if they stuck with it to compete with that 2009 Patriots game. Maybe. I mean, like we talked about, the stadium structure kind of is an obstacle there. I don't think it is maybe capable of being as loud as Giant Stadium just because how it's built, but it was loud. And just
it was the
I've never heard
everything.
Yeah, they implemented that, so there was so much going into it. But I've never heard a even when the Jets are getting blown out, I've never heard a stadium as quiet as it was in that moment. It was just like people weren't angry or like ranting; they were just absolutely shocked because it's just unbelievable. It's the last thing that you could have wanted to happen. So
it's wild, man. Like, even
crazy.
You talking about that, like I got that feeling again. I'm just sitting there for like 2 quarters and just not like just staring, just like not even saying.
Yeah, no, it was the same thing for me. Like, they were competing. I mean, I think they were down like 17-3 or something. So the first half wasn't great, but they hung around. They were doing decently enough, but I just didn't really care. And I got that sense from like the whole crowd also that they just gave up. But then, end of the game, you're like, all right, screw it, we're still in this game, let's try to get this win here. And I think the crowd got pretty hyped up late fourth quarter and overtime. They got back into it. We kind of I think you could feel that across the crowd. It was like, look, let's just win this game here, think about that later. And they did, so it was incredible. But it was like the moment after Gibson scored that touchdown and like the reality set in of what was coming up. You didn't really feel like they won after that kind of subsided.
No, it was a win, but it was a loss, man. And I remember, I remember specifically one time walking out with Kyle Smith. I think it was after Zach No, it was a game. It was a bad game of Zach in 2022, and like walking out and be like, "What are we gonna do? Freaking Derek Carr, Rodgers," just like thinking about all the possibilities or whatever. We end up getting Rodgers, and this is how it works out. There's like so brutal. But Rodgers comes back. Obviously, 2024. This is last year. We were one of the highest ranked teams in the AFC, projected to make the playoffs by most gambling websites. They dismantled the defensive line. They get rid of Woods, JFM, Huff, and Jefferson. Jefferson said the Jets wouldn't answer his phone calls. He would have came back, but the Jets didn't reach out in time, which how does that happen to a multi-billion-dollar organization with hundreds of employees? I don't know. They trade for Reddick, who is in holdout with Philadelphia. They don't give him a new contract, which is crazy. He then holds out with the Jets. Like, what's going to change? You're with a better organization. You're going to come to our team and you're going to play for the same price. Like, just beyond dumb. They gave Kinlaw a huge contract relative to his production, which, shocker, he was doubled that this offseason. I don't know what he has on Roger Goodell or somebody. They trade for Devontae Adams, who alienates Garrett Wilson as Rodgers forces the ball to Adams, especially near the end zone. I don't really think we need to add much from 2024 because it just happened. Like, we just went through all this stuff. But beyond brutal, and I know Garrett Wilson, the thing is what people will say with him, like, oh, like, look at his targets and stuff. But there was still, like, it seemed like Garrett Wilson was targeted early in games, but then not late. And like, I just did the review of Garrett Wilson. There's so many opportunities where he was just missed by a bad ball by Rodgers or him being wide open on a slant. There was 2 plays against the Titans where he wins on corner routes on 3rd down, I believe, and just Rodgers never looks at him. So there was a reason Garrett Wilson should be frustrated, and it seemed like he didn't get targeted like at all in the red zone. So I get his frustration, but obviously, like, we remember this. This was last year. Last year sucked for so many reasons, right? So,
yeah, you guys watched it.
Yeah. I also mentioned in this that Woody Johnson's teenage son is rumored to be speaking in meetings, and he reads and references JetX, which, like, hey, they're shitting on Woody Johnson's teenage son, but like JetX is brought up, like, sweet. Woody's meddling. He brings up matting ratings in meetings. He's giving opinions on Reddick holdout and the Devontae Adams trade. He mentions benching Rodgers after week 4 against Denver, which isn't confirmed, but that's the story. Rodgers leads one of the NFL's most inefficient offenses. Saleh is fired after a 2-3 start to the season. Hackett's demoted as offensive coordinator. Jets go 3-9 the rest of the way to finish 5-12. They found new ways to lose every week, which they really feel like they lost in every single type of way. Ticket prices raised again, and now Rodgers now determined to not be coming back to the Jets. Jets have $49 million in dead money. Whatever, blah, 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 blah. This is I put this play in here for Jets finding new ways to lose every game, even though they won this game. But
a little toss back here. Corley, plenty of room all the way to the end zone.
We all know what it was about.
From that first angle, it doesn't seem like it's close. Like, I don't remember thinking that. I don't remember thinking about it potentially being a fumble.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
Oh boy, he dropped that ball.
Well, the funny thing about that too was I was watching that game with Tom, who you know, and like the entire game. Actually, no, I was watching with Vinny. I lied. Watching with Vinny, and like because like it seems like every time the Jets had a big play this year, it was wait for the penalty. It's gonna come penalty, holding, bring it back, right? And after this play, we did the whole thing. We're like, wait. Like being assholes, wait, no flag. Oh, it's actually a touchdown. We can celebrate.
Yeah.
And then are you kidding me? Like, there is no fucking way. Like that just happened. They ended up winning that game, but obviously brutal. And then I think there's so the Jets have not had a winning season in 9 years. They're currently they currently hold the longest playoff drought in all 4 major American sports, 14 years without making the playoffs. I brought it up. I forget off the top of my head. I think there's 30, 32, 32, right? So there's 120 something teams. And out of all those teams, we have the longest playoff drought, which is obviously crazy, right? So football has 32, basketball has 32, right? So that's 64.
Basketball is still 30. I think hockey is up to 32 now.
Okay, I know one of the teams. Okay, so they're 32, and then
32. Yeah. So
okay, so then baseball and basketball are still 30. So you got 124 teams. We're the team with the longest drought out of all of those, which is wild. And then this is how I ended it. I just did I don't know if I can go back now. Yeah, I guess I can't. But a new era upon us with Muji and Aaron Glenn. So That actually went longer than I expected because we commented a lot on it, but that was my presentation. I think I did it in like 35 minutes to a class of however many people. But yeah, I felt it was a little bit fun to kind of recap it, even though it wasn't fun at all because it's just all miserable. But I think it kind of emphasizes the fact that like if there's one fan base literally in the world that deserves winning, it is us. So I guess any comments to close out, Nanya, because we are past your time of 4 o'clock.
Well, I mean, I just think it's wild that this American leading playoff drought perfectly coincides with my entry into being a Jets fan. Yeah. It's just like, what are the odds of that? That's something I could answer if I wanted to, but I'm not. It's crazy. It really is. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad we get to do this, though. It definitely makes it, more fun, I guess. I mean, the negative is that you have to be a part of it. You can't really like subtract, remove yourself from it too much. I have to keep writing and covering it, but at the very least, I appreciate the Jets for what they've, given to me, like being able to do, have this website and, have a platform to talk about sports with people and, meet so many amazing people. Ben, doing my podcast with him, he's like probably my best friend. No, he is. I'm going to remove that probably if Ben is listening to this. But him and you and Robbie and everything. So I appreciate that. And like there's always that aspect of sports. Regardless of the team success, I try to take solace in the communal aspect of it and the relationships and memories that you can get out of it. So at this point, 14 years in, 2 straight years where we finally thought going into the year they had legitimate Super Bowl aspirations, and to go from that to get what we got, it's at this point there's nothing guaranteed that they're ever going to do a single thing. So I'm learning more than ever to start finding joy from other aspects besides the team success.
Yeah, dude, like you become numb to it eventually, but I think like all the losing, all the terribleness over just that recap of the last 20 years, and obviously there's been fans for even longer and they've experienced even more pain than that, but like it'll make it all worth it eventually, you hope. But yeah, man, like you said, like the camaraderie, going to the tailgates and stuff like that. I love hanging out with my buddies and stuff like that. So that's the enjoyment I get out of it. It sucks that 12 o'clock hits, you pack up. And then you go into the game and you witness misery, and then you go back out and you bitch and you're sad the entire time, and then you got to recap it and do film reviews and all that stuff. So like it'll be all worth it. We've been through quite a bit of shit because like a lot of people, and like obviously credit them for being fans, but like you watch a 3-hour game, you listen to a couple of podcasts a week, but you're invested for a couple of hours a week. Whereas how many hours do we invest a week into this team? In terms of like watching the film, break it down, doing shows, doing live streams, all your articles. And then for this to be the result, it's been miserable, but hopefully it turns around soon. I hope everybody kind of enjoyed the breakdown of the last 25 years or so for the Jets. Anything you want to promote, anything you're working on? I know it's the dead time, but we'll push out articles every single day. While you gather your thoughts there, I can just say again, I recorded 31 reviews of Jets players. I think we've probably dropped about half of them at this point. I still have a few free agents to go. I think Brandon Stevens has to come out. Noddy has to come out. And like 1 or 2 more, I believe, Tyler Johnson and maybe somebody else. And then you're getting all the way from Olu, the entire offensive line, to Eric Watts, to Leonard Taylor, to a bunch of different guys. So you'll have plenty of my reviews dropping every 2 or 3 days. So watch out for that. I will be streaming every 2 weeks. I think Nana's going to jump on the next couple of weeks. I think next week or in 2 weeks from now, we're going to do our top 25 players on the Jets roster, I think. So look forward to that. And then Nani, anything from you specifically?
Nothing
for you, actually. This is from Connor. I saw it and by the way, Hitchhiker's Pie. You described it like a cult, which cannot be escaped. Which pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. It's pretty accurate.
Jets are hopeless with Woody Johnson.
I mean, it is like that though. Like it's a hard thing to leave once you put a certain amount of time into it, because you feel like you put too much time into it. Like you're too like tied to that fear of I'm going to leave and this is the year they're going to be good. Like you want
it's not even that though. Like, could you ever have your fandom for another team? Like, could you ever be as invested as you are to the Jets, into the Ravens, or whoever you would change teams? Like, you would never feel the same peak of joy when they're winning with another team. It's just impossible.
It would just be like fabricated if you try. Some people might do it, but I think they're faking and like putting it on for people. But for me, it's not even that option. It's more so like just the not caring. But even that, it's like you don't want to be sitting there on Sunday like apple picking. You want to watch Justin Fields get sacked 5 times and lose 10-14. That's what you want to do. That's your hobby. That you're committed to this. It's your lifestyle. So that might happen a couple times. Hopefully not too many, but probably at least once. But
So,
no,
yeah,
it's like it. Yeah.
Okay. No, sorry. Go ahead. Did you have more? I thought you were going to stop there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, yeah, I think it's difficult to, once you put a certain amount of years into it, it just feels like, you're kind of, you want to be there for whatever success happens. And when you're not watching, it feels like you should be. Like, I still have like nightmares of missing Jets games. It's like a constant, that's one of my most frequent plot lines, I would say, for negative dreams is like, oh, I missed the Jets game. Like, I got to get home for the Jets game, or like something like that.
Dude, my friends, like being at this age, like the amount of friends, not really now because I'm 32. It's like most of my friends are married, but it's like the last few years of like, oh, my cousin's wedding is on a Sunday in October. I'm like, why? Like, are they that stupid? Like, who plans the weddings for Sundays? Like they know that 75%, 80% of male adults watch football, like die hard. I just don't understand. But Jets are hopeless with Woody Johnson. Like, I'll like, honestly, like I get it, but I'll disagree because he stayed away the first couple of years with Douglas. Like Rex Ryan was here. They almost went to the Super Bowl. Like he meddles when it gets bad, but typically the first couple of years of guys, he doesn't really meddle. Like he invests money. He's a little bit of a joke, but I don't think they're hopeless with Woody because then how do they make the AFC Championship games twice? Like I don't really buy into it, but nonetheless, Connor Long says, what do you think about my article about Tyler Johnson? Do you have any thoughts? Did you read it or did you see it? Or
yeah, I mean, I like Tyler Johnson. I think he's. I don't think. No, we haven't put your review out. I know you're not the highest on him, and I'm definitely not in terms of like. I think Reynolds is above him clearly, but I think like he made some plays for the Rams last year in terms of Yak. I think he has some physical ability. So I think he's sort of in that mix with like Gibson, Corley, guys who might compete for those manufactured touches. So yeah, I'm not super high in Gibson. I don't really think he's shown much of anything. And Corley obviously is a complete wild card with the new regime. So if and he's been banged up. So if one of those guys can't stand out, maybe Tyler Johnson is like your jet sweep screen guy. So I think has potential for that.
Yeah, but how much yak did he have? Because the play that's playing now, I think, was like pretty much all of his yak. It was kind of like one play, right? Like it wasn't a thing where he consistently got. Like I didn't watch him. I was like, oh my god, he's so great at yak. I'll just be honest. So, like, yeah, I get it, I guess, with Tyler Johnson, but I really look at him like I think he's competing with Xavier Gibson for like receiver 5 or 6. I wouldn't expect him to be anything more than that for the Jets. Even the contested stuff that I watched, like it was more like the technique wasn't great. So I don't think it's necessarily replicatable with him. So the real will be out there. But I could say personally, it's like I think he's pretty much the definition of a jag. Like that's really what I think he is. He's just a guy, your 5th or 6th receiver. You'll forget that he was even here in a few years, realistically. But yeah, it is what it is. Eagle thing, really quick question. Why is Michael Clemens and Lazard still on the roster? Everyone else getting cut? Clemens, I don't know. He should be cut. Save the $3 million. Rucker, they don't have anything else really there, so why not take a risk on a guy who at least had potential, being a 3rd-round pick? And then Lazard, he took a pay cut. I don't think Lazard is bad for $2 million, wherever he's getting. But Nanya, you told me 4:00. It's now 4:11, so I don't want to take away too much of your time. I was asking you a question about your upcoming articles or anything you want to promote. So comment on that, and then I promise I'll get you out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's very miscellaneous. I try to just follow my inspiration or like topics I see on Twitter, people talking about, but I'm working on one with the backup O-line. I wanted to look at that a little bit. It hasn't been talked about too much. My recent one about Will McDonald I enjoyed that one, kind of projecting his 3rd year. I really liked the one I did on the run scheme and what it might look like with Tanner Engstrand and kind of the split between outside zone, inside zone, duo, power, like what that distribution might look like and how the Jets could fit their different running backs into that with Brees.
How much did they run
Allen
outside
Davis.
zone?
So the Lions are a very heavy outside zone team, but the Jets were also last year in terms of the percentages. So
it's really outside zone.
It's really very and that's kind of what the article gets into. It's very similar. The Lions splits versus the Jets. I think it's just a difference in, the Lions have Penei Sewell and an elite offensive line, and the Jets have not had that, but they have the potential to be that this year. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you watch any of my reviews or anybody in here, if you've seen me bitch about outside zone from gun, I hate it. So I'm really hoping they do not do that. But yeah, check out Nana's articles. Again, let's see. So I think my next couple of film reviews that are dropping, because I marked them down. You got Stevens, Okafor, Johnson, and Noddy are the free agents remaining, and then you're gonna get Olu. Will McDonald, which I was watching him back and doing the breakdown, like his pass rushing was ridiculous this year at some points. You'll have Tippmann, Allen, Simpson, Sherwood, Sauce, ABT, Garrett Wilson, Isaiah Davis, Leonard Taylor, and Quinn Williams and Eric Watts all coming in the next month or so as well. So make sure to stay tuned to that. Really quick, Eagle, I am not going to the Jets-Bucks game. I think I'm going to Jets-Pats, unfortunately, just because I got some things going on that I cannot necessarily discuss right now, but a little bit busy and all that stuff. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys, and we will catch you in 2 weeks when we do our